Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries. That puts America at war. This is about preventing war. It's always been about preventing war. My husband is a combat veteran. He's deployed now. The last thing I want him or any of his military brothers and sisters to do is to go to war.
But I think it is time to give the Ukrainians more help hitting these bases inside Russia.
One of the reasons that the administration has hesitated is because they believe it will escalate things even further with Russia pull the U.S. further in. Why not? Why do you think that's a good idea?
Because it's Russia that has escalated this war. Russia has learned how to pull its forces back out of the range where we have allowed Ukraine to use our weapons and get our support.
American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they've done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III.
A U.S. official has confirmed to CBS News President Biden has given authorization for Kyiv to use U.S.-supplied long-range weapons to strike deep into Russian territory.
I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the question about whether or not that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you.
British police came into the embassy and arrested.
After a long flight from the UK, Julian Assange's day began on the island of Saipan, a tiny territory chosen because it's the closest US court to Australia. This normally quiet courthouse, swarming with reporters, as the WikiLeaks founder arrived flanked by former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd.
individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
What I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest.
So what is the threat to democracy? People on both sides, people in power, saying out loud that they want to control what you get to hear and see. It is real, it is a threat, and it is happening and growing. And I'll tell you what, punishing thought is on the agenda. And I just heard it from someone who's not a kook, not Alex Jones, not Tucker Carlson, one of the most sober and intelligent politicians of our time, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
I think it's important to indict the Russians, just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg admitted that the Biden administration repeatedly pressured Meta to censor content, including information about Hunter Biden, and Zuck admitted that he also regrets complying with these demands. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Representative Jim Jordan, Zuck writes, quote, "The FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it."
You know, you do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy theories.
Well, yes, but I mean, honestly, you know, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am in awe of Ms. Jankowicz. When the department picked her, did it know that she had said that Mr. Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation? Did it know that she had vouched for the veracity of the Steele dossier?
Senator, let me repeat myself and add an additional fact. One, we do not discuss internal hiring processes.
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech.
be a conspiracy theorist is to have been right all along, despite the efforts of the paid-for liars. And it's also to be demonstrably well ahead of the gullible, still believing in smoke and mirrors. Conspiracy theorist was first used by the CIA to shut down those who doubted the official line about the murder of John F. Kennedy, that fishy old tale about a lone shooter and a magic bullet, and then that lone shooter being shot by another lone shooter before he could talk. That was in the 1960s, and from then, the label conspiracy theorist worked for decades as the means to make thinking people too scared to speak when they smelt a rat. Let 2024 be the year of clearing out the rubbish, the trash, the long overdue year when the past or sell-by date labels, conspiracy theorist among them, are cast into the dustbin of history.
And welcome everyone to Redacted on this Thursday. It's a solo show today. It's the testosterone Thursday. We've got David, we've got Philip, we've got Clayton. Natalie is off today, but we've got a jam-packed show for you today. Colonel Douglas McGregor is going to be joining us here in moments to talk about, did we just avert World War III, or is this a dog and pony show? The Trump team allegedly, and we knew this actually a couple of weeks ago, has been actively trying to prevent President Trump from going to war in Iran. It seems like the New York Times is finally catching up to that. We're going to talk about that today on the show. We're also going to talk about time travel and teleportation. Ashton Forbes is going to be joining us here towards the end of today's show to deep dive all of the latest information about the Bombshell report from the White House the other day, where they just basically came out and admitted, yes, we have technology that allows us to manipulate time and space. What? You're admitting this now? We've known this for decades, but thank you for admitting it. So what does that mean for all of us? I want to travel. Can I step on a pad and be transported somewhere? So Ashton's going to join us in a little bit. We're also going to talk about the ending of the Fed. President Trump going to war with Jerome Powell over the past 24 hours, calling for him to be terminated immediately. We are big fans around here of ending the Fed. We think it's a criminal organization that's been manipulating our currency for decades. I hope that we end the Fed, not just end Jerome Powell's tenure. So we're going to talk about all of that. And I should mention today, at the end of today's show, by the way, we're going to be going to Rumble Premium only, just to hang out after the show. Now, it's funny because like last week when we did this, people are like, oh, is your show now paid? No. Like if you're tuning in late, I just want to say this right off the top. So the whole show is free, but at the end of today's show, we're going to hang out. And I'm going to ask Ashton actually to stick around, so we'll have a really great Q&A just with our Rumble Premium subscribers. If you support Rumble Premium, it's a free speech platform, really the only free speech video platform left and available out there. So if you're a Rumble Premium subscriber, nothing will change. You'll be able to see us. But if you want to join us, I think it's like $5. Oh, no, you can save $10. Just go to rumble.com/premium and you'll save $10 and support free speech. So we'll do that at the end of today's show, just kind of hang out on this Thursday. We've been doing it every Thursday and it's been a lot of fun. That way I can really, interact with you guys and have, go through the chat room and hang and just have a great conversation. I think we've been having great conversations. So anyway, I've been enjoying it. David, Philip, have you guys been enjoying it? I know you guys have.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you.
Yeah, of course.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. So great to see everyone. All right, let's get into the news, shall we? Here in a second. Let me, if I get my notes up here. I hope everyone's doing well on this Thursday. So let's talk about this. Iran. I love when the New York Times finally catches up to our reporting here at Redacted. A few weeks ago here on the show, we reported that there was a team of anti-war Trump cabinet members who were actively working to prevent a war with Iran, trying to stay away from doing Israel's bidding in Iran. But they were up against neocons. And Israel, which of course desperately wants American help in destroying Iran. They've wanted it for more than 30 years. We played you the clip yesterday of Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, back in 2002 in front of Congress, calling for us to help destroy Iraq, calling for us to help destroy Libya. Check. Yes, we did that. And then Netanyahu, of course, said the third one on that list is to destroy Iran. So far, we've not done that. We learned that this group of anti-war folks is made up of my old co-host at Fox, Pete Hegseth, who's now the Secretary of Defense, Vice President J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, and Susie Wiles. So interestingly, though, the New York Times says it was the Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, and Susie Wiles. They didn't mention Marco Rubio in their reporting last night, but our reporting does include Rubio in this mix, which is interesting. Of course, and then I said, and I'll say it again, the main man sort of leading the charge for war against Iran has been neocon Mike Waltz, the same guy involved in the weird Signal chat leak, which we covered here a few weeks ago. But it looks like the anti-war group shut him down. J.D. Vance shut him down. Marco Rubio shut him down. Pete Hegseth shut him down. And according to the New York Times, though, he's agreed, in fact, they quote this in the New York Times piece, that an attack on Iran would drag America into a deep abyss. Man, Netanyahu must be pissed. Joining us now, Colonel Douglas McGregor joins us today.
He's not in yet.
Oh, he's not here yet. Okay.
Yeah, he's not.
All right, well, okay. Well, we'll bring him in a second.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
All right, good. So the New York Times reports that Pete, as according to Max Blumenthal, who points this out, the New York Times reports that Pete Hegseth was among the Trump officials opposing the U.S. launching a massive war on Iran on behalf of Israel. 3 Pentagon officials have already been fired for unknown leaks. Unknown leaks in this story. Israel lobbyists are now calling for more firings over the leaks that led to this story.
Colonel's in now, Clayton, by the way.
All right. So the Israeli lobbyists are telling our government that they need to fire more people over these leaks because they think that this is really bad news. This is really bad news for Israel because they desperately want the United States to help them bomb the shit out of Iran. Colonel Douglas McGregor is here now. We got him fired up and keyed in. Colonel, good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Well, please don't bomb the shit out of me. I want your stuff.
Never.
Pretty scary.
Good to see you, my friend. What do you make of this reporting? And I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show, because we have been reporting here for the past couple of weeks on this show that there has been this group of anti-war cabinet members really trying to insulate Trump from these neocons. Our fear, of course, I think your fear as well, is that these neocons that like Mike Waltz and others who have been kind of bending Trump's ear are pushing him to do Israel's bidding against Iran. But it seems like the anti-war folks have won out. What do you make of this?
Well, let's put it this way. I think the drums are still beating, the drums for war, but not as loudly as they were before. Keep in mind that Donald Trump, at least based on my experience, short experience that I had with him, is someone who is absolutely not interested in going to war with anyone for any reason. It's just not what he wants to do. I also think he's smart enough to know that wars have a bad habit of destroying presidencies. Now, can we escape this trap that he finds himself in? And he is trapped. And the trap was set for him long before he was elected. You saw that at the convention when they displayed the Israeli flag, and above it said Israel first. And then you look at the people who were appointed to the key positions, all of whom effectively swore allegiance to Israel first and said, whatever Israel needs and wants, we're going to provide it. That's our number one priority. I think this is really Donald Trump, more than anything else, is just not comfortable with the whole idea of going to war. It's not what he wants to do. Now, I just don't know if he can withstand the tremendous pressure that's being brought against him to do something. I mean, this is also true from the Hill. People on the Hill have been part of this war party with Iran for more than 2 decades. It's not just the inner circle. And then, of course, the people that paid for the White House. And they are very much interested in greater Israel as the project and the destruction of everyone and anyone in the region whom they see as either a real or potential opponent of Israel. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but we can certainly take a breather at this point and be grateful for Donald Trump's instincts to this stage.
Yeah, and a bunch of these Trump cabinet members, of course, have pretty significant, Israeli lobby ties. That's been well reported. Right. J.D. Vance has received quite a bit of money, has that support. So has Tulsi Gabbard from AIPAC and others. So the Israel lobby is very, very strong. They've, as you pointed out, they've paid a lot of money to get the results that they want from our politicians. How long do you think Trump can kind of keep them at bay and hold them off from launching some sort of a massive attack? And by the way, you bring up a great point. Wars have a funny way of destroying presidencies. Can you think of a time when a war has helped a president in the past 100 years, other than maybe Franklin Roosevelt, I guess?
No, I don't think FDR was helped by it. He died at an opportune point in time. Had he lived longer, I think the truth about Pearl Harbor would have come out. I think Americans would have discovered that we lost the war effectively because 50% of the world was now under Soviet rule or communism's rule. So I don't think so. I mean, Lincoln, the war obviously killed him one way or another. I think the only president who seems to have profited from it is Teddy Roosevelt. And of course, he fought in it, the Spanish-American War, but he certainly profited from his service. Americans liked him, liked what he did, and thought highly of him. But you're right. Everybody else, Woodrow Wilson was destroyed by it. FDR's whole domestic program was destroyed, and then he died, as I said, fortuitously. Eisenhower was smart enough to recognize that Korea was a dead end, and he ended it as quickly as he could on the best terms he could get. Everybody else, Vietnam and so forth, went under. Now, I guess you could make the argument that Desert Storm did not harm George W. Bush, but it doesn't seem to have helped him very much either. So who knows? But I think Trump knows this. The thing that I'm worried about more than anything else is that we seem to be in a race to the bottom, in the sense that on the one hand, we have this very fragile economy, this financial system that is swimming in debt. We have done some very stupid things with the tariff wars that have tended to accelerate the downward spiral. Then we have the war problem. And we seem to make more enemies with each passing day, either on the economic or strategic military level, or both. So I just don't know if we get to the fiscal crisis that I think we're going to hit first, then we will probably dodge the war bullet. But if we don't, I don't think the fight for war inside the United States at the highest levels is over yet.
Yeah, that's why President Trump seems very keen on removing Jerome Powell from the Fed. Of course, going to war with him overnight on that front. He knows that an economic crisis is coming very, very soon in the United States.
He inherited the mess. I mean, he didn't create it, for God's sakes, Right. And there's another thing with Donald Trump. I mean, he should be very upfront, and should have been upfront day one about Ukraine. I didn't want this war. I didn't start this war, and I'm pulling out of it. Done. Ending all further aid, withdrawing all of our people, military, intelligence, otherwise, everybody out. If he'd done that, he would be a hero right now inside the United States and for much of the world. He blew that opportunity. Now the Russians will solve this on their own, frankly. It doesn't make much difference what he does. He's got to be very careful, though, with Iran, because the Russians and the Chinese and many, many others are keenly interested in avoiding war in the Middle East. And that's why the Iranian foreign minister went to see Putin in Moscow and ended up talking directly to Xi. I mean, these people want peace. That's what we don't seem to get. We're the ones, along with our Israeli friends, that seem to be interested in war. We're all alone in that. Nobody else wants it.
This Saturday, the talks are set to resume between the United States directly with Iran. And apparently the first round of discussions were, quote, excellent from the American side. Excellent discussions. I'm sure that really pissed off Israel. But where do you, if you could give us like your sort of a 1 minute assessment here, where you think these talks are going and what you think will come of it?
Well, if you go back to the initial letter that was signed by President Trump and sent to Iran, that was, as I said at the time, effectively the same sort of ultimatum that Franz Josef of Austria sent to Serbia. And it had no chance whatsoever being accepted. I mean, that document was a sure guarantee of war between Iran and the United States. And I think Mr. Witkoff was sent over and said, look, let's focus on what we think is most important, and that's the nuclear weapon. We don't want that. Find out how we can avoid that. If we can avoid that, then we can avoid war. Well, that's dramatically easier than the ultimatum. That is probably attainable. And let's hope that that's what will happen. But remember, he was pushed to walk away from the joint comprehensive agreement that was reached under Obama. Now he's talking about going back to something similar to that. I don't know how he pitches it the second time around, except to say that this is going to last much longer than 20 years, that this is indefinite or something until somebody walks away from it. But a lot can happen between now and any sort of agreement. There's a lot of water left under the bridge, a lot of people in Washington that are going to fight very hard against it. So I hope President Trump is successful with this, but I'm going to watch carefully, and I'm not entirely optimistic.
Well, follow Colonel Douglas Macgregor on X and visit his great website, Our Country, Our Choice, who always keeps a clear head on all of these issues and provides great context on this. We'll be watching closely here. And Saturday, of course, is the next round of discussions. And Colonel, we'd love to have you back maybe next week after those discussions.
I'm amazed that we're not all drinking heavily by this point. You know?
Me too. And you and I don't drink, but I do have a seltzer.
But I'm going to get close if something good doesn't happen soon.
I know. I think we're on the precipice of something here, either economically or on the war footing. And we desperately don't want that to happen. But hey, maybe we saw some good news. President Trump says it looks like they're going to pull out of Syria. So, maybe some good news there on that side.
He wanted to do that in 2020. He said, I want out of Iraq. And he knows that if we go to war with Iran, all those army troops, personnel, Americans, whether they're National Guard, regular Army, whatever they are, they're all at risk. They're easily targeted and destroyed. He knows that. So getting them out one way or another is a damn good idea at this point.
Yeah, hallelujah. Colonel, great to see you as always.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Colonel. All right, we've got more news to get to here. We're going to talk about Trump declaring war on the Fed, as the Colonel was just talking about there a second ago. We're going to dive more deeply into that. What would that mean for interest rates in the United States? We are on the precipice, as Colonel just pointed out, a disastrous economy that he was handed by the Biden administration and the rampant amount of spending. Of course, the Fed, which is a criminal organization in the first place. We're going to dive deep into that in a second. But first, I know David and I, we'd love to do fasting. David, what's like your current fasting status? You kind of do it like every day, right up until like dinner time, pretty much? That's pretty much what you do, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't think he's connected, but yeah, he does a lot of fasting. Oh, okay.
Well, listen to this, because I'm a big fasting fan as well, and I just read a study today about the 72-hour fast, which, if you can do it for that long, what it does to tumors in the body, disease, everything. It's unbelievable. and you have a fat, if you're doing it for like 5 days, it's unbelievable at the cellular level to rejuvenate you from the inside out. And that's why I want to tell you about our friends over at Prolon and their L-Nutra product, because this is unbelievable. What if you could fast, but not actually have to fast? Let me explain this. So Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet works at the cellular level to rejuvenate you from the inside out, providing real results. And now they're upping their game with their next gen 5-day program. And it has the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Basically, you can fast you can actually fast with food. I know it's like, typically fasting is like water only and no food. But this program actually nourishes the body with a scientific method amount of calories, so it stays in the fasting state while you're doing this, so you don't have to feel like you're going crazy. I know when I hit the day 3 of a fast, I'm like, ugh, not anymore. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, beverages designed to nourish your body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular regeneration and renewal. The 5-day program is amazing. You'll feel so much better. You won't go crazy. And now I can't wait to try out their newest one, their Prolon Next Gen, which continue to see amazing results. So for a limited time, you can be the first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. At Prolon is offering Redacted listeners 15% off right now, site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. So just go to Prolon, that's Prolon life.com, prolonlife.com/redacted to claim your 15% discount and grab your bonus gift. Again, that's prolonlife.com/redacted.
I guess I'm going to be a new customer because I'm getting that.
I'm telling you, I am too. It's amazing because like by day 3, like you were over here the other night, we were building the studio and you're like, I need to go eat right now because I'm going to go crazy because you've been doing the whole fasting all day. So yep. I know my sister-in-law does it. She's lost incredible amounts of weight. So it's, I know the deal on that. So, but to be able to have that where you don't feel like you're going to go crazy and have some soups or snacks that are part of it, it's great. It's great. All right, let's talk about the Fed, shall we? Well, it's happening again. President Trump is going scorched earth on the Federal Reserve and specifically on Jerome Powell, calling him always too late and wrong and saying his termination can't come fast enough. And honestly, can you blame him? The Fed has been dragging its feet while the European Central Bank has already cut rates 7 times. Meanwhile, Americans drowning in credit card debt, mortgage rates are still through the roof and they're going up again. And Jerome Powell is just like sitting there pretending that everything's fine. Now, Trump is making it clear Powell's days are numbered. The Federal Reserve isn't some neutral institution. Of course, it's a cartel of unelected bankers manipulating our economy and destroying the value of our dollar. Want to know why we got into the Great Depression in the 1930s? Look no further than the Federal Reserve. The cause of it, the impetus for it. And Powell has been their poster boy for years. So let's dig into this when someone who actually gets what's going on here and has been demanding the end of the Fed. Joining us now is Chris Rossini from the Ron Paul Institute to talk all about this. And by the way, check out his incredible work here called Set Money Free, What Every American Needs to Know About the Federal Reserve. And Ron Paul, of course, wrote the foreword there, and Chris joins us now. Chris, great to see you. I know you and I are on the same page with ending the Fed, but maybe just at a high level, we can get into the pieces of why the Fed is awful for the United States of America. But what's happening here with Trump and Powell? What do you make of this back and forth?
Yes, well, you're 100% correct. Like you said earlier, it's a criminal organization, perhaps the biggest one in our country besides the military-industrial complex, but the Fed is what fuels the military-industrial complex. It should not exist, the Federal Reserve. 2 main reasons. Number one, they price fix interest rates, and nobody knows what the price of interest rates should be. It should be set by the marketplace between a lender of savings and a borrower of those savings that they want to invest. So a centralized Soviet-style board of federal governors picking what the interest rate should not exist. So that's number one. And number 2 is they counterfeit And, there aren't too many federal crimes in the U.S. Constitution, but counterfeiting is one of them. And the government got around, okay, we're not going to counterfeit. What we're going to do is we're going to have this private bank, so-called private bank, counterfeit money instead. And that's why we have these trillion-dollar budgets. The value of our dollar is, compare it to when I was a kid, when my parents were a kid, and they got cheeseburgers for a quarter. That's because, nothing changed with the cheeseburger. It's the value of the dollar has dropped so far that it now costs, people can't afford McDonald's anymore. So those are the two main reasons, why the Fed should not exist.
So President Trump says he's been way too lazy on this move to lower interest rates. Do you think, I think we've heard some rumblings that the Trump administration, or when he was candidate Trump and then President-elect Trump, that there was some discussion that they were going to end the Federal Reserve. Why do you think they haven't ended the Federal Reserve?
I don't know if they can. The Fed is, I would say, more powerful than our government. This is a banking cartel, and it's even bigger than the United States. It's a part of all the central banks around the world. So it's one thing to say that you're going to end the Fed, and another thing to do it and get everybody to go, or enough people to go along with it. I think the Fed will end itself, and this has been Ron Paul's position, because it will create a financial crisis that it will not be able to salvage. So that'll probably bring the end of the Fed, because there will be no other choice, and it won't have to deal with politics. They'll just have to go, kind of like when we stopped all the COVID stuff. That was it. It was time to stop. So that's what I think is more likely. As far as the spat with Trump and Powell, President Trump doesn't know what interest rates should be either, in the same sense that I don't, and Powell doesn't, and Ron Paul doesn't. Again, like I said, it should be set in the marketplace instead of one person decreeing, or certain people, that this is what the interest rate will be, and that ends up distorting the economy. When it comes to has Powell been doing the wrong things, I actually take the side that he has been right in how he has conducted. Again, this shouldn't exist. But when inflation is roaring, and it has been, we've been suffering for many years, you want interest rates to be up and perhaps even higher to help choke off that inflation. If he lowers interest rates, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, well, let's go get more loans. And the Fed will print money, and we're going to have even worse inflation. So this is a bad cycle that we're in, but more inflation is not what I want. I'm paying enough at the supermarket. The last thing we need is interest rates to go down, artificially again, and that'll just fuel further price rises in the future.
Right. I mean, I think people have short-term memory loss, I think, because these artificially low interest rates are in large part what got us in this mess in the first place.
Yes.
And now I think you're hitting this housing crisis again. We're facing a housing crash again. I think we're on the precipice of a disaster. Is that how you read it? Are we literally sitting on the edge of an economic disaster? Have we already hit it?
The market is far too complex, and there's so many variables that I can't sit here and be, we're finished. People adapt to everything. So, but we are in terrible shape. That's for sure. Interest rates going lower, while it would feel good, take a look at the government, take a look at the businesses, individuals. Do you think when you look at America, these people need more debt? Because that's what would happen. And that debt would have to be created by the commercial banking system, by the Federal Reserve, again, counterfeiting. So we will just have further inflation down the road. So Powell is doing the right thing. Again, this shouldn't exist, but keeping rates up, I think, is the right thing to do. Now, it hurts, but it hurts. If you drink too much, the solution isn't just get me more drinks so I don't have the hangover. The hangover is going to be worse if you drink more. So it's the same thing. We don't need more credit. What we need in this country is more savings. And that is not going to ever happen if the Fed lowers rates, artificially again.
You know, President Trump likens, or he seems to have great reverence for Andrew Jackson, President of the United States during the 1830s, of course, and famously Andrew Jackson at the time, I think it was 1830. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he ended the second bank of the United States. It wasn't the Fed, but it might as well have been. It was a powerful institution led by a lot of private bankers, a lot of private shareholders. He thought it was corrupt. He thought it was destroying democracy, and so he ended it, and then he came back and vetoed it when they tried to recharter themselves a few years later. I guess the Fed is way more powerful than the second bank of the United States in the 1830s, but you know, if Andrew Jackson did it, maybe President Trump could do it.
Yeah, he was heroic at that time, Jackson. And I don't think Americans know that we've had several central banks. There was the first bank, the second bank, which Jackson ended. There was a national banking system during the Civil War. And then the Fed is the one that's stuck. And it has created this massive disaster. The problem is that the scam is global. The second bank was not a global institution. The Fed is a global institution, and it affects the entire world. So ending the Fed, while, like we said, is right, it would cause a lot of chaos in the meantime. So Andrew Jackson closed down something that was local, but closing down the Fed, which will happen someday, which is unpredictable. I can't say this is A, B, C, D, how it's going to happen. But when it does, it will be a good thing for the entire world.
Well, President Trump says he wants to get rid of Jerome Powell. He needs to be terminated. But, you know, that means that somebody else would step in then. Somebody else is going to step in and take over that role. Is there somebody that would be better than Powell that we could all, rally around? Again, these are unelected, powerful people. And we have no say in it as American citizens. We're just sort of beholden to this criminal cartel. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, we are. We are really slaves to them. It's a shame because they can control how much of our money they can debase. And we have nothing to say about it. If they want to create money for war, they'll create money, and then we'll go to the supermarket and the prices are up and your insurance is up and everything goes up. And we had no say. It's not like we got a tax bill in the mail and we can say no. They just do it, and we are the victims. No, there is nobody better. It's like, what if you replace Marco Rubio, who is a terrible neocon, with John Bolton? Neither one is going to give you good results. So to say get rid of Powell because he's doing it wrong, doing something that nobody can or should do, then it really doesn't matter who the face is. They'll just, it'll be somebody just as bad.
Yeah, that would be my question for President Trump if we have him on the show. It's, you want Powell out of there, but the whole organization, it's like saying you want to replace, Al Capone with somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, you got to cut down the whole system and get rid of the whole damn thing if you can. Chris, great to see you. The book is Set Money Free. Let's see if we have it here. I'll put it back up on the screen. Go grab it and read it. What every American needs to know about the Federal Reserve. This is one of those books that people should read and maybe buy a copy and put in their public library so people can read this. So people understand why we say, end the Fed and how corrupt it all is. Chris, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Clayton.
All right, coming up here on the show, we're going to talk about Canada's election. There's only 11 days left if I'm doing the math here. Yeah, April 28th, the snap election. Canadians right now looking at poll numbers. Are they accurate? Is Mark Carney the real winner here? Or is it heavily skewed? What about all those EV plants? Basically the green scam in Canada. Yeah, all these EV plants are laying people off right now because that massive boondoggle is collapsing. Also, Pierre Poilievre, is he a wolf in sheep's clothing? Is he a fraud? We're going to talk about all of that in Canada because, man, my Canadian friends are just getting hot and heavy right now about this election and what it means for the future of Canada. Are you going to get more of the same? More of the same sort of Trudeau liberalism there that destroyed Canada? Or is something actually going to change? And is there any real daylight between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney at all? Should people be looking at Maxime Bernier? We're going to talk about that in just a moment here. But holy smokes, I mean, talking about gold and silver, I see people in the chat room right now. You know, look, there's a gold panic right now. And are we seeing something similar to what we saw in 1980? Gold surging past $3,300 per ounce right now. And as Zero Hedge is reporting this morning, it looks very, very similar to what we saw in 1980 with the real price of gold. So we're seeing gold surging $3,300 an ounce. But the real story might actually be silver. Are we about to see, you know, is it silver's turn to shine and explode like Zero Hedge is talking about today? And actually Bloomberg specifically is talking about watch silver. We could be in for an explosion of silver prices, because obviously it's not just a precious metal, but it's also a commodity. It's a currency, and it's used in so many electronics that the need for it is going to be massive here. So we are big proponents of investing in precious metals around here. And I can't tell you enough how important it is, I think, as we're heading towards this economic cliff right now, to have if you've got US dollars, like that's how your family's future is tied to US dollars. I mean, I would seriously think about how can I take some of that savings and convert it to precious metals. Every government currency in world history has collapsed. All of them. And the US dollar right now is being massively devalued. Can you take some of those US dollars and convert it into precious metals, even if it's just some of your savings, so that you don't lose your shirt when there's a collapse? That's what Natalie and I have done. You know, you guys, you do you, but if you've got $1,000 sitting in savings, is it worth maybe transferring that over to precious metals? For 5,000 years, it's held as store of value in famines and wars and government collapses. So I like those odds. But our friends at Lear Capital, they're a big supporter of our show. They can actually help you, and they can help you do this. So I would just give them a call and say, hey, I've got $500 in savings. Can I convert that over to some silver coins, some gold coins? Can you ship it right to my house? I can store it in my gun safe, or it can be held off site. Just have a conversation with them and talk to them about what that looks like. If you've never done this before, you don't have to be scared of it. I didn't invest in precious metals until about maybe, 4 or 5 years ago. And I'll never look back. But at the time, I was like, what do? You buy gold bars? They send gold bars to your house? Like, how does all this work? I didn't understand it because I was really just a real estate investor. And they walk you through the whole process, and they'll make it super simple for you, so you don't have to be scared of it. Just call their 800 number and talk to their team. They're an American team, okay? So they're here in America. They're in a patriotic company. They're not going to farm it out to some third world country somewhere on a call center. They'll talk to you about it, okay? So call 1-800-613-3557 for your free gold guide, or just go to LearRedacted.com and have a conversation with them. We'll have links in the description so you can talk to them about that. So our thanks to Lear for supporting the show. Well, only 11 days until the snap election in Canada because of the collapse of the Trudeau government. Mark Carney sitting pretty right now, it appears, if you believe these polls. The highly subsidized EV plants all across Canada. This was like the Liberals' wet dream up there in Canada, like build all these EV plants, highly subsidized by the federal government of Canada. And then when the cold winter hits, all these batteries don't work and all your fleet of trucks don't work. And now there's thousands of layoffs happening at these EV plants across Canada. The polls are skewed right now. If you look at the polling in Canada, a lot of older Canadians are heavily sort of weighted in these polls. Do you guys believe polls anymore anyway? But Canada, man, they're on I think this is the most important election in modern Canada's history. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but let's ask David Craden out of Ottawa, Canada today. He writes on his great Substack. He writes at the Post Millennial, and of course he hosts the show Craden's Right, and he's always very prolific on X with his live streams as well. David, am I wrong to say I think this is the most important in my lifetime, maybe the most important election in modern Canada's history?
I would have to concur, Clayton. This is the most consequential election probably in both of our lifetimes. And I think it's Canada's last chance to escape the grip of globalism. And if Mark Carney is given a 4-year mandate as an elected prime minister, not just an appointed one, which he is at the moment, I believe Canada will be into a catastrophic time of economic crisis, foreign policy crisis, and perhaps the collapse of Canada itself. That's my tea leaf reading of this election. It is very consequential indeed. And as you say, we have just 11 days until Monday, April 28th. I do believe the polling is skewed. You mentioned that. And I think it has been heavily weighted to the 60 and older crowd, which, unlike the past, used to be very strong supporters of the Conservative Party. They have now switched their allegiance largely to the Liberals because they have swallowed this nonsense that the mainstream media and the Liberal Party have been trumpeting, namely that if Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister, he is going to cancel old age pensions and do all kinds of horrible things to seniors. And this, of course, is because he's Canada's Donald Trump, but he's not. And Donald Trump isn't doing anything of that sort of nature in the U.S. So it's farcical. But I do believe if the reality of the poll right now is analyzed, I think Poilievre is marginally ahead of the Liberals if the polling is 100% accurate. And I'm predicting he's going to win a slim majority government, nothing like he was prepared to win in January before the departure or the imminent departure of Justin Trudeau. He was slated to get the largest majority in Canadian history. That's no longer possible, but I do think a slim majority is, simply because the longer we see Mark Carney, the more we see of Mark Carney, the more we learn about how deep in the pocket he is to China and the globalists, about his incredible hypocrisy, about his tax evasion. It's just looking sicker and sicker every day for Mark Carney. And I do think there's an upsurge for the Conservatives simply because that's the only real options Canadians have to stop the Liberals right now. Yes, the People's Party of Canada is probably, for many small C Conservatives, a better option. However, they're polling at 2%, and they have no way they're going to win that election. They are not a viable force right now to stop Mark Carney. I have friends running for the People's Party of Canada, including my good friend Lisa Robinson in Pickering. And I have a friend in Alberta who's running. But I'm not telling anyone how to vote, but I am saying priority one is to stop Mark Carney. He's a danger to Canada. He's toxic to this country. He will destroy what's left of Canada after a decade, almost a decade, of Justin Trudeau. And that's what I'm telling people in my writing and my broadcast right now, because yes, this is a serious consequential election.
We always hear this too, in the United States, where you're like, well, look at Ross Perot. Like, everyone should, rally around this third party, this candidate, this independent who's not really tied to the major parties, and let's rally around. And he was on his way to maybe winning until had some family issues and whatever. But Pierre Poilievre doesn't. I don't know how much better he is. I mean, and that's what you guys are stuck with, right? I mean, Maxime Bernier on Tucker's show this week saying, basically that Pierre Poilievre is a fraud, and I think, still pushing for massive amounts of immigration into Canada. I have friends in Canada who are so, and I'll say this, they're so disgusted by the amounts of immigration into Canada. And they tell me all the time they don't even recognize their country anymore. It's totally different. And this has happened under the Liberal Party. And now Pierre Poilievre is sort of going to continue a lot of this immigration. So I get it's like the lesser of two evils, picking Pierre Poilievre right now. Is that what people are stuck with in Canada? I mean, I guess they could vote for Maxime Bernier, but then you got 2% of the vote right now in the national vote. So I hate that term that you're like, then you're throwing away your vote, right? If you vote for Maxime Bernier, then are you throwing away your vote? Is that how Canadians are seeing it right now? It's really sad. I hate that.
Oh, that's that's obviously how the conservatives are selling this. That don't split the right-wing vote, although how right-wing is the Conservative Party of Canada. If Pierre Poilievre only delivers on his pledge, which he has continued to make throughout this election campaign, to privatize, to defund the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, I would even be satisfied with that, because this has been a goal, an objective, a wish, a dream for conservatives in this country for decades, to stop spending the $1.4 billion. And of course, Mark Carney wants to institutionalize that funding so it's not even debated anymore. It's going to be automatic. But if Poilievre comes through on that promise to defund the CBC, it will mean so much to conservatives, small c and large c, in this country who have fought for this, including myself. I wrote a paper on this about 15 years ago, the reasons to privatize the CBC. I have been fighting for this for a long time. I'd like to see this happen. Another reason I think Poilievre is not Mark Carney, and he's not Justin Trudeau. He's proposing a 30% middle-class tax cut. Mark Carney is proposing a 1% tax cut. Poilievre has a reasonable response to the affordable housing crisis in this country, which is to stop the regulations and the taxes that are driving homes and apartments, for that matter, beyond the range of everybody, especially younger Canadians who can never even dream about owning a home. And I think if Poilievre delivers that much, it will make a profound difference between what we are headed for, potentially, under another Mark Carney administration, this time elected with a 4-year mandate. It's a frightening concept. And as much as I have tried to push Pierre Poilievre farther to the right on some issues, I think his weakest link is immigration, and the other one is Ukraine, continuing the supporting this stupid war in Ukraine. However, I'm not going to get everything I want from Poilievre, but it's a heck of a lot better than the other option, which right now is Mark Carney. And it's going to be a fierce last week of election campaigning. There's an English language debate tonight, which I'll be covering. That's going to be crucial. He destroyed Carney last night in the French language debate. He'll do even more so tonight, I believe, in the English language debate. One thing Pierre Poilievre does very well is debating. He's honed his debating skills for over 2 decades now in the House of Commons and during question period. He's good. Mark Carney is a lousy public speaker. He's a terrible debater. And I think tonight could be the beginning of the end for the Liberal Party's hopes of winning this next election. And this could be the end of Mark Carney's hopes.
I hope you're right. A lot of different takes in this in the chat room. Just Alameda Sweet and Spicy says, Pierre Poilievre is the best Canada ever had for quite some time. Very bad take, Redacted. I'm slamming him on immigration. I'm slamming him on his position on Ukraine, but Mark Carney is terrible for Canada. So I'd much rather have him. Who else? Let me see what else. Let's see. Catherine says, I would love Maxime Bernier to be the prime minister, but will plug my nose and I'll vote for Poilievre. Then Nikki says, Pierre is the clear winner. Piss off, David Creighton. Nikki says. So, man, I
just endorsed Pierre Poilievre to win this election. Why am I appealing? What is she upset about?
I don't know.
I mean, unless you get on your knees to these political leaders, some people are never happy. But I mean, of course he has his faults. Of course he has his problems. But I think this is a crucial question of Canada staying together, and the only political party that can do that right now, and the only political leader that can do that, is the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre. And so if people are hearing me say don't vote for Poilievre, I mean, even though in Canada we don't vote for the leader of the party unless you happen to be in his constituency, but don't support your local Conservative candidate. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is a huge crisis Canada faces, and we need to keep Mark Carney out of office. We need to ensure that Canada is not going deeper into the glove of the globalists, because that's precisely where Mark Carney will take us.
Yeah. Shez says Pierre Polyev doesn't have ties to the WEF. So there you go. I mean, this is going to be amazing. I will be watching it very, very closely. And we'll follow David. If you're in Canada, follow David on X. He does a great job breaking all this all down. And we will stay focused. I'm not, and Nerd 101 says Redacted is struggling to stay on track at the moment. No, we're not. I'm just reading the chat room right now, and I love seeing all the different Canadian takes right now. So love it. I love it. I want to see it. I want to see the back and forth here. Like, where do people, not one person is supporting Carney in our chat room, I'll tell you that much, but there is some debate between, Pierre Polyev right now and Maxime Bernier. So we'll be watching tonight. It'll be great to see this English language debate. David Creighton, up there in Ottawa, in the throes of a crazy election. Great to see you, David. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Clayton.
Great to see you. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about manipulation of space-time. The White House admitting this week that, in fact, we have technologies and weapons. The White House, yes, coming out and admitting that we have the ability to manipulate time and space. Of course, we've been talking about time travel on this show for a long time. Ashton Forbes is going to be joining us. Of course, he's the incredible physicist and, I would say, citizen journalist who blew the lid off the MH370 story and how that aircraft was teleported and transported using these technologies by the United States government. And, you might say, wait a second, I thought the thing just crashed. No. So we're going to talk about that, these bombshells, and we're going to ask Ashton if he can to stick around with us for our special Rumble Premium show, where you guys can all hang out. Maybe we can ask some questions of Ashton if he's got the time. But first, got to tell you about our friends at Genucell. This is a great story. So listen to the creation of this company. So Phyllis, lady named Phyllis, she walks into a neighborhood pharmacy in Colonia, New Jersey, and asks the pharmacist for an antioxidant cream for her wrinkles. And the pharmacist says, you know what, I'll compound one for you. Just come back tomorrow. So then she comes back, she buys it, and she uses it for 3 days. And then she goes to her dermatologist appointment. The doctor just looked at her, thinks she's got some work done, like she got plastic surgery done. And so Phyllis tells everyone about the pharmacy and the pharmacist who made this magical cream. And that's, believe it or not, how Genucell skincare was born. Genucell, and Natalie loves this, and actually now my 12-year-old daughter has been stealing it and using it as well, because they're two peas in a pod, those two ladies. But it's great for the under eye serum, bags and puffiness, and just really making your skin look very, very nice. That was 25 years ago when she walked into that pharmacy. Genucell has since then shipped millions of orders, and yet they still have the exact same philosophy of antioxidants, same natural base, and the same chef in the kitchen. They're celebrating 25 years. And right now, you're going to get 50% off your membership pricing to celebrate their 25 years on Genucell's complete skincare package, featuring their under-eye bags, puffiness treatment, jawline sculpting treatment, and immediate effects for results in minutes. You can look 5, 10, or even 15 years younger, guaranteed, or your money back. So they'll send you your money back if you're not happy with it. So right now, go to Genucell.com/redacted. Every order includes free shipping. Just use the code redacted at checkout for an extra discount. So there it is, Genucell.com/redacted. All right, I want to talk about time travel. I'm looking forward to this all day. I've been looking forward to talking with Ashton Forbes all day in the secret technology. Yes, the White House admitting this week, on the record, by the way, that we possess the technology to manipulate time and space. In other words, time travel, teleportation technology, like the very same technology that was used to make MH370, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, disappear in thin air on camera. And by the way, the people that are like, oh, that video's been debunked. Shut up. No, it hasn't. In fact, it's been the opposite. It's been bunked. It's not been debunked. And the man who helped really uncover the story from the beginning is Ashton Forbes, one of our favorite guests here on the show. I call him a physicist because he is. Citizen journalist, and one of the most prolific individuals in this space, and just thrilled to have you on the show. Ashton, great to have you. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Clayton. Feelings mutual. It's always fun to talk to you.
Blast. I hope we have fun here. I'm really looking forward to this. So this is the reason I wanted to have you on, is because of this bombshell. There's a couple of stories over the past couple of weeks that kind of came out. I want to play this first soundbite from General Quast. Now he worked in Colorado training individuals, and he saw this technology basically, I think, on the desks of Air Force engineers in the United States Air Force. And it was basically admitting that we have these incredible technologies that allows us to teleport, transport in ways that you wouldn't blow your mind. So let me just play a few seconds of this. Watch this one.
The technology is on the engineering benches today, but most Americans and most in Congress have not had time to really look deeply at what's going on here. But I've had the benefit of 33 years of studying and becoming friends with these engineers and these scientists. This technology can be built today with technology that is not developmental to deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth to any other place in less than an hour, to deliver Wi-Fi from space where you never need a cell tower to connect, to deliver.
Yeah. And then this just happened over the past 48 hours. Trump White House official of science and technology policy director Michael Kriatzos said that we possess the technology that can manipulate time and space. Watch.
Our passenger planes are slower than they used to be. Our trains crawl compared to those in other parts of the world. Our cars do not fly. Advances have not stopped, but something has gone wrong. Stagnation was a choice. We have weighed down our builders and innovators. The well-intentioned regulatory regime of the 1970s became an ever-tightening ratchet, first hampering America's ability to become a net energy exporter and then making it harder and harder to build. We seem to have lost focus and vision, to have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow, and improve productivity.
So he's basically, and I love what you tweeted the other day. You pointed out basically he's admitting that we allowed our technology to sort of purposefully stagnate, that we almost like slowed it down on purpose, yet we have the ability to manipulate time and space. So first of all, when you heard his comments, what did you think?
Yeah, and the first thing I thought was, okay, let me see the context. And when you get the context, it's actually even crazier in the context. He's saying that we intentionally made a choice to hamstring our technology. And he's talking specifically about transportation technology. And then he says, we are capable of so much more. And when he says that we have the ability to manipulate time and space, he's talking about gravity manipulation. That's what manipulation of time and space literally is. And then after that, he kind of speaks to other things that also would speak to things like what plasma might do to make things grow, as well as just, other applications for the same technology, potentially as well, like AI. He speaks to making things more productive, which in today's day and age would mean AI. He says something about the 1970s, which I don't think anybody really picked up on, but if you're somebody that has researched gravity research, in the 70s, the Mansfield Amendment was passed. And what this did was made it so that the military could not fund things that were not related to combat, direct military applications. And so gravity research got pushed to the defense contractors. So all of these references, like there's no way, if you're somebody, people gaslighting about, oh, he's talking about telephones and internet, these people are sitting at the little kids table, right? Well, there's two videos out there in perfect sync that show a plane literally disappearing out of space-time that is still missing 11 years later. So we got to just be real about it, as much as we don't want to believe it, whatever, but it seems undeniable to me.
Yeah, we're watching this. This is MH370 on the screen here, which of course disappears using. So would you say that maybe the same technologies that he's talking about is what allowed the United States government to disappear MH370?
Yeah, definitely. And what we're talking about here is technology that you can find a lot of videos of engineers talking about this. That zero-point energy technology is an echelon above anything that we have conventionally right now. So even nukes are completely obsolete in face of this level of technology. And you'll hear people talking about this all over the place. So you can imagine a lot of scenarios where with this type of technology, the United States government is uncontested in the world. And this explains why nobody has really actually tried to challenge us on the global stage for, almost an entire century at this point. And some people say, well, if these are out there, could other countries have figured it out? Yes, I think there's a shadow arms race. And I think this overlaps with the UFO community where they say that, this might be UFO tech or whatever, and then Russia and China are working on this. This is what scares me the most about this, is that, if two warring factions get this level of technology, the science on display here that I want to go through with you today, it has the capability of producing not just a wormhole, but actually a black hole, like annihilation of the entire planet, maybe even the entire solar system. It's just a matter of scale. And what you realize from these videos and the science related to them is that physics, the universe is scale invariant. Stuff that you can do on the small level, small scale, you can also do on the large scale. Those orbs that you see there, they are mimicking atoms. It looks like an atom. It's a positively charged plasma center with electrons that you can see as green, as a shell around it. You can even see the shell of the electrons move fluidly when they start to spin around the plane because of the magnetic field they're producing around the plane. It's just wild when you look at it and you can see all of that detail from that. So what I was hoping today is and I've seen you talk to Tucker Carlson, some people that are really prominent and connected. And I want to help because you're saying all the right stuff to get all the lingo and arm you with all the tools that you need to help explain to the general masses and to these people who are connected, like what's really going on here from the scientific perspective and from a suppression perspective and national security as well.
Please. So let's get into it. So, I think what you just said is amazing. The nuclear weapons are obsolete. Nuclear weapons are obsolete, that we have the ability to manipulate time and space. Those are the weapons that's why no one wants to touch us, because we have things that are far more powerful. And I think you would agree that these technologies have come from UFO crash retrieval programs, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, I think there's a lot of options. I'm open-minded, and I've now grown to have a viewpoint of anything is possible under the right conditions. So does it come from aliens? Does it come from things that we dug up? Does it come from future humans or another dimension? I don't know if we have enough evidence to say for sure at the moment. I will say I'm pretty confident there's a psychological operation going on to get us to be convinced that humans can't understand this, that it's alien technology. It's alien physics that humans can't possibly understand. And that way, if we're doing black operations, covert operations, which is what the MH370 videos show, we can blame it on aliens. Oh, it was aliens zapped the plane away. No, aliens aren't zapping the plane away. That's us. That's what humans do. So I think that they're trying to get us to avoid that. And it's very important to realize that there is no alien physics. Anything that aliens can understand anywhere in this universe, that's physics that we can understand. We are simply missing something that's probably right in front of us when it comes to how these UFOs we see flying in the sky are moving around. And absolutely, anyone out there, UFOs are real. There are things flying around that people do not understand. It doesn't necessarily mean it's aliens, though. Here's the secret. After I dug into it as an investigator, the answer to the question of how this is all possible is negative energy. And you go, wait, Ashton, all the academics are saying that negative energy is this non-existent exotic substance. Yeah. Why are they saying that? Because it's not. It's a conceptual misunderstanding. And then, boom, the whole universe opens up to us. Tesla technology is possible.
Yeah, let's break it down for the layperson, and if we want to get this out to the masses. So, like in my conversations with Tucker and others about this, trying to kind of break through maybe the psychological operation that's out there and lay it bare for everybody. Negative energy. What is it, and how could it be used in all of these applications?
Exactly. So there's something called the vacuum catastrophe, which is that we look up in the sky and we measure the cosmic microwave background. We're measuring all the heat that we can see in the sky. And we say that that's all the energy that's out there in the universe. And it comes to this relatively small amount of energy. But then quantum mechanics came around. Wheeler and Feynman came into play. And Schwinger and Feynman won the Nobel Prize for quantum electrodynamics in 1965. John Archibald Wheeler and Richard Feynman said, when you do the math from the quantum perspective on the energy of the universe, it's over 120 orders of magnitude higher than when we measure the cosmic microwave background. Why this discrepancy? Which one is correct? Is there no 0 point energy out there to be tapped into? Or is there a huge ocean of energy that can be tapped into? The difference between this question is the difference between whether or not negative energy exists or not. If you don't think negative energy exists because it's an exotic substance, then you're somebody that believes that the cosmic microwave background is the answer, that there's no energy to be tapped into. But if you're somebody that understands quantum mechanics, you realize that we're not talking about thermal energy. We're not talking about heat. We're talking about vibrational energy. The 0 point energy, that ocean of energy, it's vibrating all the time on the tiniest possible scales. And that's how we interact with it. That's why Tesla was saying that there's an ether of energy and that the answer to the universe is energy, frequency, and vibration. So what these people need to understand then is, well, what's the thing that we missed? Zero's not the bottom. 0 point energy is quite literally the energy that exists below zero. The energy below the ground state. So zero is not the bottom. That's not zero. It's just the ground state. It's just the equilibrium state. That's us on top of the ocean. We're on top of the ocean floating around. So what's negative energy? Oh, if we tap into that 0 point energy, we pull it out. And what are those orbs doing in that video? This is why it's proof. This is why the zap in the video is absolute proof. The orbs are inducing a negative energy state through a low energy phase transition. The ground state of, imagine just a hydrogen atom. The ground state of the hydrogen atom is shrinking a little bit because they're shrinking the space. Like you look at my screen right here. Let me see if I can make this work. They're shrinking the size of the space itself. And when you do this, everything comes together. Everything gets squished together. And when you do this, it changes the permittivity of the vacuum of that region of space-time, allows for negative energy to be possible because the ground state goes down for every atom that's there. And when that occurs, there's a release of energy. That release of energy is an ultraviolet light. This is why in the whammy video, the satellite video, you see a flash of light come. So we're like, oh, there's light. But when you look in the thermal, it's black. It's cold.
Oh, so no, that's a great point.
Ultraviolet light. Go ahead.
So let's show that. So this is the one where we see
that's gravitational lensing right there. Go ahead.
Gravitate. So what are we seeing here? So there it disappears.
So that was the frame right beforehand, and then the frame right after this wormhole opens up. By the way, there's only 4 frames of this wormhole, and you can actually see it open and close. You can even see the tail of the plane in the first frame right there. Now, what you're seeing here is you're seeing space-time being contracted. And when it gets contracted, the refractive index, the permittivity of the vacuum, changes. And when that happens, what you see is this effect where the ground state of your atom, of your hydrogen atom, your orbs, goes down. And what this does is it's like a trampoline, like jumping on a little trampoline. It pulls a little bit of energy out. And it doesn't even have to be that much energy because those balls of plasma are 20 feet wide of condensed charge. They're extremely powerful magnets. So when you jam them together, the closer they get, that force goes up and it amplifies to a degree where then, boom, space-time itself breaks down. Space-time itself breaks down. And magnetic reconnection occurs when the orbs get too close because these magnetic fields, these orbs, is so powerful. Now, the last thing I want to say on the orbs for you to understand, which is helpful, is that these are orbs of coherent plasma, meaning that what's happening is the magnetic and electric fields the plasma is producing is what's being used to make it into a sphere. You would say, wait, what? It's actually itself is making the fields that keep it trapped? Yes. So what they figured out is they move the plasma around the right way. The fields will cause the plasma to become an orb that stays coherent in the sky that can float around. And that's called magnetohydrodynamics, MHD. You'll see the acronym all over the place. They're using controlled, powerful magnetic fields to move the plasma around, keep the charge separated, the positive and the negative, so that it acts like a lightning bolt. And then somebody at some point figured out, oh, let's just jam a few of these together, and then boom, we can make things disappear. The last point I want to make is, well, you're saying it's teleportation. They could probably annihilate something as well. But for several reasons, including the phones ringing, the plane being seen later on, and all this weird dance the orbs are doing on the plane, I think it's actual teleportation. So what's happening is the orbs must have an equal number of charge between the 4 orbs. You've got 3 orbs around the plane, and you've got 1 orb somewhere else. So when this plane is being teleported, Delta, don't sue me, and then comes back, the orbs need to cancel out. So let's say you've got 2 of the orbs are positively charged and 2 are negatively charged. When they come together, they're going to equalize and they're going to dissipate. That could be one configuration. The other configuration could be that the 3 orbs next to the plane all add up to 1 negative charge. And then you have 1 positive charge, let's say at Diego Garcia or in the Maldives. And then when the orbs come together, it causes them to slingshot and come together, and then they appear at your new location. That's what these people have figured out. And it's crazy because it's so far beyond our current paradigm to think that not only could we have figured out gravity and have an actual working warp drive and wormhole technology, but to actually use it on an airplane that itself is not equipped. It's not like it's a Starship Enterprise. We used it on an airplane that was flying around in the sky. So this is like, you realize the implications of this right away, as I'm sure you've considered. You could teleport a nuke onto somebody. This is technology that obsoletes all prior forms of weaponry.
It's amazing to think, and you have this whole battle discussion over Iran and developing a nuclear weapon. And in many ways, the whole thing is moot because this technology is so far more advanced than all of that. I want you to stick around, Ashton, if you can. And we want to move we're going to do this whole Rumble Premium thing. And I want to kind of open it up for a lot of people to ask questions here if we can. But before we get there, and by the way, if you're watching us on YouTube, come on over to Rumble. We've got 30,000 of you watching us live on Rumble right now. All the tens of thousands of you over on YouTube, come on over to our Rumble Premium right now, because we're going to hang out with Ashton if we can. When we talk about time travel, and we talk about when you're moving into this wormhole, are we actually jumping through time, or the way that we think of time, I guess?
Yeah, I thought you might ask me that. It's funny because I spent last night trying to figure that out. And now I think I have a good answer, is that the wormhole itself, if you're traveling through it, there's no time that's passing, no matter where the opening and the closing is. And if you follow the principle of least action, this would mean that there's never going to be any passage of time while you're traveling through the wormhole. And if you then put one more restriction and say that the mouth of the wormhole cannot move, it can only be in one spot, as in it opens and closes and it's not there anymore. If you make those 2 restrictions, it's no longer possible to go back in time. Reverse causality is no longer possible, no matter how you look at it. You'll always, even if you go through a portal, go through a different portal, you'll never show up at a time before you started the process. So my opinion right now, having dug into the physics, is that there is no way for you to actually go back to a previous time in the universe. But you can actually travel in time. Time travel is 100% real. You can do 2 different things, which I think are extremely significant. You can travel to the future, number 1. You can slow your rate of time so that everything else looks like it's speeding up around you to such a degree where you could go 100 years in the future. All of a sudden, it's 100 years in the future, and you're like, whoa, how did that happen? It would be extremely disorienting, but you could do it. The other thing you could do is you could reverse your biological process. You could put a bubble around yourself and reverse the entropy of inside the bubble, which is you and your age, and you could reverse your age. And before you ask me, would you remember that? I actually asked Navy engineer Salvatore Pais this question. His opinion is you would still remember, because his belief is your consciousness is stored in the 0-point energy, not in your body is just a receiver, which I tend to agree, but obviously speculative.
It's unbelievable. Time travel is real. And I know I've always wanted to talk to you more deeply about this, and we will. Ashton, thank you so much. I want to include you now in our Rumble Premium time. So if you're a Rumble Premium subscriber, It's we actually have a $10 coupon too, by the way. If you want to become a Rumble Premium subscriber, you can. And we're going to continue this conversation. Just go to rumble.com/premium, use the code redacted, save $10, support freedom of speech. It's the only video platform that supports fully freedom of speech. So we're going to continue this now. If you're watching us, we're going to switch to Rumble Premium right now. If you're not sticking around, thank you guys. Have a great weekend. We're going to answer all your questions here in the chat room as well. And a lot of great questions coming in here for Ashton. So we'll take those questions here. But thank you guys, everyone watching us live. If you don't want to hang out in a Rumble Premium time, then have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. But I want to talk time travel. I want to talk more stuff here with Ashton. So hello to our Rumble Premium subscribers. All right. So Ashton, time travel is real. And we can travel back and forth in time. We've seen a lot of these videos on